And my goal has never been to, I'm not here to harm people. My goal in my business has always been to change lives with fitness and health. And that's what I've done since I was 16 years old. This guy right here in orange pants, can't miss him. He hired me at this gym when I was 16 years old, and I was just a meathead bodybuilder. I kind of still am. But he gave me an opportunity to help people through fitness, and that has been my mission and my goal since I was really 11 years old. I became a member here. So tonight I wanted people to come and share their tough stories of how this has been a struggle for them and their business.
Hi, I'm Tim Dryden with Undoctrinated. Thank you for joining me today. And I'm here to talk about the American Small Businesses Against Lockdown town hall that I attended with my friend Ryan earlier this week.
Howdy.
So the story begins about 6 weeks ago. I recorded a podcast, and this was motivated by the fact that California was rolling back its reopening. And this upset me because I never, quite honestly, I never felt like California should have been locking down to begin with. You know, in fact, I don't think anywhere really should have locked down, especially not the way that we did.
Yeah, we jumped out and then in, and it was kind of like we dangled somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. So around early June, late May, they began rolling out the phases for reopening, and they started slowly reopening. I think they were, even for a brief amount of time, they were even allowing people to dine in restaurants and everything like that. And then right around the second or third week of June, they began massively testing everywhere. They opened up all the COVID test centers, so they were testing thousands of people a day.
And it wasn't even just the people that are currently sick. It was actually antibody tests as well, that anyone who had been sick, those were also going rolled in there.
In addition to that, they had expanded the definition of what a positive COVID case was right around that time. So naturally, the headlines, all we were hearing was that there were surges in cases, and now there's like this new spike in danger, allegedly. But, you know, I wasn't buying it. So that's why I looked up the definition at that time of what an actual positive COVID case was. And they had expanded it so much to make the definition so broad that they could literally, point their finger at anybody and consider that person a positive case. If you look at the new definition of what a positive COVID case was, and this is going back to mid-June, and I'm assuming it's continuing today, there's things on there that say you're a positive case if you've been in contact with somebody who has tested positive in the last 14 days. It even says in there you can be considered a positive COVID case if you live in an area where there is an increase in cases. It's literally that broad.
Yeah.
So those two things together, the new definition as well as the huge rollout of testing, obviously naturally there was this giant jump in positive cases nationwide really, but in California, and it led to them rolling back the reopening.
And I think one of the key things is these are a lot of people that are working there being affected. So people are being told they can't come to work, that their work is shutting down.
Yeah.
So really, it's affecting people, I think, on a lot larger scale than just, stay home, just, stay isolated. But you have people that are basically told you have to live off the state because we're going to give you money, but how much money was that? We have people with problems with the Paycheck Protection Program.
Right.
People with small businesses trying to roll into those, and the system being basically bogged down by so many people. So people that were shut down couldn't get money. So and it was a pretty huge ordeal. The whole thing.
Yeah, good point. What I was getting at though is this rollback in the reopening here in California set me off and motivated me to do a podcast episode where I was explaining the new definition, why I thought it was bullshit that we were rolling back that reopening. And I stated on the episode that it's time for small businesses who are continuing to struggle through this to just open up, just to ignore the mandates placed against them. It's better to die on your feet. I guess.
Kneeling.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention the police are overran right now anyway. So if everyone started opening up and everyone did it, there would be.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would have the resource to enforce it if enough people did it. So anyway, a couple weeks later, after I released the episode, I heard the news story about Peter San Nicolas, who is the first small business owner in San Diego County to be facing criminal charges for opening his gym. And I had to reach out to him, and he was kind enough to let me do an interview with him. So my next podcast episode, which just came out about a week ago, was an interview with Peter San Nicolas about him staying open and the new situation that he's in related to that. And then just a day after that, he invited me to come cover the town hall that he was holding at his gym, where he was giving other small businesses in the area an opportunity to speak out against the government tyranny that's kind of squeezing them right now.
Yeah, there's multiple people there, lots of businesses, a lot of people upset.
Yeah. It was about over 100 people there, wouldn't you say?
There was a lot.
Yeah.
I think at the height, probably close to that.
Yeah. Anyway, Ryan was kind enough to join me. He did the camera work, photography, video. So we've got that video feed for you here today, and we're going to show you a few brief clips from there, and then maybe add some commentary to it.
Sounds good.
Should we get into it?
I think so.
All right.
Okay, come on up.
Hey. Hey, Peter. My name's Amar. I'm a small business owner in Hamul, and absolutely, I'm also running for Congress here. But I love going to the Turkey Inn. I want you to know that I hear you. I hear you. The governor's gonna hear you. And when I'm in Congress, we're gonna fight against these kinds of things. Because look, I'm gonna say something that's gonna make you guys all freak out. I'm a Democrat, but I'm here. I'm here to tell you that I have your back. I'm here for Peter. I'm here for all of you in Ramona, because I know what it's like to work so hard. And then the businesses that you created, a year, 5 years, 20 years, all gone in 5 months. I know the struggle you're going through. I wrote the governor a letter asking him not to pick winners and losers like he's doing with his executive orders. To have an open mind, to treat everybody equally. Why are we gonna let restaurants stay open but not bars? If it's safe for one, it should be safe for the other. My church is doing a great job having services outdoors, but they're not doing it at noon anymore. It's too damn hot in East County. That's where I'm from, so we're doing it at 7 p.m. Works for some people, doesn't work for others. We have to make sure, and I'm a Democrat, but I'm not your typical Democrat. I'm not your tax and spend liberal. I want to make sure that we defend our founding values. This is a nation that was built on give me liberty or give me death.
Okay. Well, that was interesting for sure. A little bit unexpected. I mean, I did kind of expect to see some politicians there, or possibly people running for office. That one in particular was a little unexpected for me.
So that was, I'm going to butcher this name, but that was Amar. He's running for 50th Congressional District for the House of Representatives.
I assume 50th District is Ramona, California? Or?
I think it's San Diego area, yeah. And well, I'm guessing Ramona almost directly. But that said, he ran in 2018, but was unsuccessful in his campaign. What I found that was interesting is it seems like if I'm in the perspective of all these business owners, I'm looking at the country as a whole. It seems like the strictest lockdowns have come from the Democratic side, or Democrats. So for us to have someone that's running for the House of Representatives come in and say, "Hey, no, I'm for that," it makes me be a little bit skeptical.
Yeah.
If he's not just using this for for being political.
Yeah.
For his campaign.
That's definitely a kind of a politically savvy move to see an opportunity to be heard and just to take it and you know, obviously a politician's gonna say what people want to hear when they're in front of them. But you know, obviously, I think personally that pro-lockdown positions are kind of a losing ideology to take. Ultimately, I don't think that it's, especially as we progress through this and more data becomes available, I don't think that's going to be a position that many people are going to stick to. And especially by the time November rolls around and we get to these elections, I think some of the faces of this lockdown, like the Gretchen Whitmires and Gavin Newsom's, Andrew Cuomo's, I don't think it's going to play well in their favor. Not to say they won't get reelected, but I think long term, history's not going to view these people in a positive way because of this.
Do you think that even liberals who are being affected by this lockdown with their businesses, that they're going to also vote against party line? Or you think maybe this is a way for them to, I hate using the term wake up because I think we overuse it, but
The red pill?
yeah, kind of take the red pill a little bit, the red enema. And I'm wondering if this is going to be what it is for them to come around, and if they're going to actually not vote party lines, even in a state that's so blue like California, because we've had the strictest, but everyone seems to be having issues with their whole business, their whole livelihoods, and complete families and businesses are being ripped apart right now because of this. I'm wondering what this is actually going to indicate, if anything, in November.
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously only time will tell on that. People are clearly dug in deep on their party lines. You know, they've staked their claim, as it were, and there's not a lot of movement within the political spectrum right now. But this is a big event, you know. A lot of things are changing, and if this doesn't change your ideology, I don't think anything will, you know.
In the world, I guess, at that point.
yeah, exactly.
Depends who's pushing the button, I guess, but
and I quite frankly, I think it's pretty obvious too when Trump is kind of out of the picture, whether that's in a few months or in a few years, then I think a lot of this cloud is going to be lifted over many people's, or you know, there's going to be a lot more open-mindedness, I think, because so many people, whether they're for Trump or against Trump, I think are blinded by that derangement syndrome that seems to be infecting quite a bit of people right now.
But do you think it's actually gonna change, or do you think it's just gonna go dormant? Do you think it's actually people are gonna start to maybe be a little bit more open-minded? Either way, Republican, Democrat, liberal, libertarian. Or do you think it's like a rash? People are just scratching it all the time right now, and that's why. And then if they just leave it alone, if Trump isn't reelected, it's going to go away? Or do we think it's just going to go dormant, and the next fairly conservative president, or very, if there is ever another one?
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of it's driven by the media, but you clearly have, especially on the left, people have thrown up all their principles entirely, and now they are just anti-Trump at all cost. I forget what the slogan is, or vote blue no matter who, or all this nonsense. Like, to me, that's more hardened than ever. There's a lot of people. It is hard to break party lines, especially when it comes to voting for president, but it seems to be worse than ever right now, and that it is weird that just the anti-Trump theme seems to be the biggest. Obviously, we saw it in the debates, the Democratic debates. It was every single candidate had to be anti-Trump. You heard his name thousands of times, and
he's in their heads. And he's not even paying for the rent.
So yeah. To answer your question, I think it does have a lot to do with Trump, and I think things will get a little bit back to normal without him. But then some other candidate that's viewed as an outsider could step in, and then the media once again goes against him, and who knows? It could be Kanye West, and then it starts all over again. Yeah.
Easy.
All right, what do we got? We got two more segments here. Let's get into the next one.
Money to actually pay for the lawsuit. So that would be a concrete thing that we could all do to support our small businesses that are being harmed. So I will have flyers I can pass out. If anybody's interested, please, come get one. We also have another lawsuit pending in the group regarding the masks, and it's also becoming about the unconstitutionality of the lockdown because there's no state of emergency. The California Constitution definition of state of emergency is that our medical services are overwhelmed, and they are not. They were never overwhelmed. We were told, flatten the curve, stay home for 2 weeks. 5 months later, all of our small businesses are dying or dead. It's time to do something. So I bring you tonight at least one concrete action you can do. And then you can join our group if you'd like, if that speaks to you. We're at reopensd.org, and I'll have that on my flyer. So anyways, it's great to see everybody out, knowing that the economy is lives. It's not the economy or lies. The economy is lives.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the more interesting speakers that I heard that night. And I approached her after the town hall just to get more information on Reopen San Diego. And one thing we didn't show in that segment was that she had mentioned that they're also a part of some lawsuit regarding the masks in San Diego County, which I'm also very intrigued by. So that's another reason why I'd like to get an interview with her on my podcast, which I think is going to happen because I have been in contact with her.
Oh, good. You were able to reach out and...
Yeah. I told her, I reiterated that I'm interested in getting an interview with her on the podcast, and she said okay, but it won't be for a couple weeks. I'm working on lining up an interview with her and then the Recall Gavin Newsom people as well.
Excellent.
So that should be interesting. Those are upcoming episodes that I'll do on the audio release of the podcast, so stay tuned for that.
She brought up a point that our state's no longer in a state of emergency because our beds were never completely full. I was trying to pull up obviously what she was trying to say. I'm guessing what she was referencing is that the initial state of emergency was pulled and used unconstitutionally, because she's talking about California's constitution.
Right.
So I'm wondering if in the lawsuit, if that's going to come out that this was all completely unconstitutional from the get-go, that this is mostly like a power grab versus actual medically based procedure.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that they have an organization that's actually trying to, it seems more local than it is at the state level, because I think it's actually basically freeing San Diego versus, the state. But it'll be really interesting to see what kind of litigation comes out of this in terms of, did we go too far? Did we give too much authority to the government? And if so, why is it that we still don't have that authority back completely?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's gone on too long. Like they mentioned, businesses are starting to close. People are losing their livelihoods over this at this point, and we've seen a drop in the numbers. And she stated that the hospitals were never overcrowded, which is probably true in my opinion. I haven't looked into it that much, but you would think that if they were overwhelmed, we would have seen some definitive proof on that, just because of the way the coverage was. I mean, in New York, it seemed like they did have some overwhelmed hospitals, but even when they were covering that in the news, there was some shady stuff going on with the footage that they were using. Like they had spliced in some footage from an Italian hospital at one point when they were covering the hospital situation in New York. And we didn't even really get any coverage like that here in California, which kind of makes sense. I mean, we've got different weather. Things are spread out a little bit more here just naturally. This bigger state geographically. So it's obviously kind of apples to oranges to compare New York to California, but it kind of works in our favor as far as how the medical system was burdened by this, or not at all.
And I was going to add to that point, because it is apples and oranges. making sweeping legislation and making sweeping rules something that works in New York is not going to work here yet. It seemed like we all follow the same policies as a nation, not just as individual states, because obviously how we treat LA is going to be a lot different than how we treat, say, Big Sky, Montana, or somewhere that's much more rural. Yet it still seemed like all the I hate dividing it along political lines when it comes to this, but it seemed like all the liberal states, regardless of what their demographic was, all followed the same suit and protocol. And I don't know if that was necessarily the best. I guess California and New York would be the most aligned, considering we have New York City, and then we have obviously San Francisco, LA, San Diego. But even then, the issues we're going to face are going to be probably substantially different than the issues New York is going to face, but it seemed like their policies were almost identical.
Yeah, this is the fundamental problem with big government, you know. As a general statement, it's like these policy prescriptions that big government make are always a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody, and in a giant country like the United States, it just doesn't work across, you know, the entire landscape here. So, but that's what you get, and you know, this, until we give more power to local governments, or just less power to the federal government, you know, that's the way it's always going to be.
Yeah, if we could roll it back instead of forward, that would be nice.
I know, yeah. That'll be the day, though, right?
It's not looking good, but yeah. Once the government has power, it's hard for them to give it up.
Yeah, they never seem to, that's for sure. So it'll be interesting how we come out of this, if we ever do. Anyway, we got one more segment. It's a short segment. We're going to get to that, and then we'll have some closing remarks.
Have a voice. Go speak up. You don't have to be the face of the spear like Peter right now, but you should be behind him, pushing him forward, helping him out a little bit, and making sure that he can be heard and that his rights, because they're your rights too, are not just taken away.
All right. Those were the owners of the, believe they were like the organic shop in town there, as well as another business. In fact, I've got notes on everybody here. Let me pull that up, just so we don't misstate anything.
And
Ramona Family Naturals.
there you go. And to his point,
Robert and Victoria.
with freedoms, we gotta fight for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we kind of mentioned it in the last segment with big government. Every time they make a mistake, it's always because they're underfunded, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. You push more money into the problem, and the problems seem to just continue to grow. But at some point, you'd think that people are going to be wise to this and realize that it's just a problem that the government's handling these situations
It's just
to
smoke and
begin
mirrors
with.
at this point.
Yeah. It's a self-licking ice cream cone.
It just doesn't work. It's like no matter how many trillions we throw at the situation.
Yep. But it is time. Everybody needs to come together, even if you don't own a small business. I don't see how you can't not support small businesses, no matter what your ideology is, what you believe.
Their lifeblood.
Even if you're pro-lockdown, how can you not support small businesses at this point? And it's important for people to come together right now in support of this. It's important for small business owners, in my opinion, to open their doors, get back to business as usual, no matter what the local governments say. And if you want to do the right thing in this situation, voluntarily donate some money. You can go to Peter San Nicolas's GoFundMe. That's American Small Businesses Against Lockdown. And that is the most morally acceptable way, I think, to deal with this situation, is to just voluntarily collect funds for small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can get together and help a lot of these lawyer fees and things that are going on. I think we're trying to do our part by getting the news out there and really emphasizing what he's going through. I mean, he's got, I think if I remember right, what I read in the news, CBS, forgot what news station it was, but he's facing 5 misdemeanor charges,
Yeah.
I believe,
Mhm.
and each one carries a $1,000 penalty with up to 6 months in jail.
Yeah.
So
It's serious for sure.
yeah.
And especially if they decide to do something like the state has been known to do, and that's to make example of people during unprecedented times, you know. So it's kind of it's got to be scary for
What
sure.
you talking about? This state's not corrupt.
Yeah.
We got Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I know. So, you know, unfortunately, money is the only way to battle back, and coordinated efforts, you know, coordinated civil disobedience, things like that. And the more businesses that just say enough is enough and open their doors, the better it's going to be for each and every one of them. You got anything else?
No.
Okay, well, before we wrap up, I did want to say that the town hall did last for about an hour. We weren't able to include everybody in this short video, but you can listen to the Undoctrinated podcast, the last episode I put out. We featured the town hall audio recording in there, so you can hear the entire town hall if you download the podcast. It's on all podcasts, all podcatchers. That's Undoctrinated. And that's about it for me.
Stay indoctrinated.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.